Iwu's and Laobanzhang's finest, going head to head in brutal combat. Who will emerge victorious? Watch and find out. Hey everyone, this is nannuoshan, I'm Siggy, and I am here to drink two very special teas today. Now, of course, we picked up some new teas for nannuoshan this year, and while many of them are very good, these two are quite exceptional, I'd say. So, I've been tasked with writing descriptions for the website for these two teas. They are the 2020 Ping and the 2020 Laobanzhang Gushu King Tree Garden. Yeah, I guess with this one, it's quite easy to understand what makes it so special. This is old tree material from Laobanzhang, the most famous village for pu'er tea right now. Ping, however, might not be quite as known to everyone. This refers to one particular tea garden in the Guafengzhai area in Yiwu. The name of the garden is Ping, and what makes this one so special is that in order to get to this garden, you have to take a hike through the forest for several hours. You cannot get there by car, you cannot get there by bike. You just need to use your legs, and you need to use them for quite a while. So this is true and proper deep forest tea. This is the kind of tea that gained Guafengzhai its reputation, and we have it here today, right now. This, I will disclose up front, is not my first session with either of these teas. This is my second session. In the first session, I looked for specific characteristics of each tea, wrote them down, created my sort of narrative that I talked about in the previous videos I did on the channel. Today, my second session with these teas will be a direct comparison between the two, because we have very low quantities of both of these teas that we ordered for the shop, and our idea was, while we are selling them individually, to have them be this sort of comparison set. We have, as I said in the intro, some of Laobanzhang's finest, very exclusive tea, and some of Yiwu's finest. Guafengzhai is one of the top areas within Yiwu, and this is closer to the high end of what you can get from there. So, two very good teas. If you've watched any of my previous videos, then you might already be aware by now that the differences in style between Manghai tea, which is where Laobanzhang is, and Yiwu tea, which is where Guafengzhai is, can be quite stark. So why not make that kind of comparison with two, let's say, prime exemplars of either region? Without any further ado, I'm gonna get started on these teas. I'm just gonna go in straight. These are not too old yet, so I'm comfortable skipping the rinse. Also, these are very high quality teas, so I expect them to be made with an appropriate level of care. Alright. As always, with Sheng Pu'er, we're gonna wait a little bit longer on the first steep so the leaves can open up properly. I do have to say though, the leaves on this Laobanzhang are quite loose. They have already come apart nicely and are already giving me a nice tea soup. I think because of that, I'm gonna decant this one a bit sooner, and then we're gonna wait a little bit longer on the Guafengzhai, as this one was pressed. into a Bing. Ooh, what a smell though. What a smell. I'm gonna keep the lids on these, which I don't do every time, just because I want to keep the fragrances that these two give me a little bit separate so it's easier to compare. But yeah, ooh, very nice too. Okay, let's see. So we have decanted. This is the Laobanzhang. This is the Ibu. Both are 5 years old. Both are spring harvest. But we can already see a bit of a difference in color here. Now, this one is more on the yellow or still a little bit greenish sort of end. This one is moving more towards like gold, amber, that sort of color. This isn't necessarily a difference that's down to how these teas were stored. This is still related to processing. For the Manghai area tea, the Laobanzhang, we have a shorter but higher temperature Shaqing, which usually makes the tea a bit more fragrant, maybe a bit more lively or vibrant, if you want to call it that. It also makes it so the tea will maybe move along a bit slower and stay in that kind of fresher, more closer to green tea-ish direction. In Ibu, we have a longer but lower temperature Shaqing, which usually means that these teas will be not quite as vibrant, but sort of a bit mellower, rounder, softer, some would say more comfortable. They might also start feeling a little bit aged a bit sooner. They might come along more quickly in that sense. And this will also be shown in the color as we've seen here. Now, for the Laobanzhang, I already said it should be kind of fresh and vibrant. And it certainly is. It's fruity, it's floral, there's a hint of like spice. And the fragrance itself is very present, quite forward. Really nice. Now the chopping, also as expected, not quite as in your face, a bit more subtle, a bit mellower. Still, also a really pleasant fragrance. But where this one is bright, this one is a little bit darker. Okay, let's pour these two teas in. Of course, we're not going to have time for a full session with both teas today, but I'm hoping to go through a few steeps and add some of the things I've noticed when I drank them the first time to give you a more thorough picture of what both of these teas are. Cheers. Yeah, the thing that makes me smile with this tea is something I'm going to tell you about in a moment. I'm going to try the other one as well first. Mm. Mm. All right. So, what's so funny with this Laobanzhang is that on the early steeps, it appears quite soft and it sort of holds back a lot. It takes a little bit to warm up, but I know what this tea can do. And I always, this is the second time of me having it, but it is really amusing to me when a tea is like very gentle and pleasant up front, and then it becomes super strong later on in the session. And this is the experience I had with that Laobanzhang. So if you're trying this and your first couple of steeps seem maybe unusually soft. Just keep drinking, and I promise it's gonna get there. Yeah, you already get these like little hints of that typical sort of citrus bitterness that you'd find in a tea like this. Significantly lower amounts of it right now than uh, you might expect, but it's gonna come. Now, with this chopping, the first impression is mellow, round, soft. You still get fruits, of course, in this. This is also a fruity tea. But you also get more in the direction of like honey or maybe nectar, even. These two certainly compare in an interesting way so far, and this is only the first steep. I'm gonna get started on the second steep, and we're gonna have to see how much time we have in this video. I'd like to do 3 steeps each, but we'll have to see. Both still smell really good. Of course, each in their own way. Okay. The Laobanzhang has a feeling of freshness and a slight greenness that certainly isn't present in the chopping. This one, I would say, doesn't really taste green at all. Alright, second steep going in. You can also notice the difference on the leaves. I'm not sure how easy it is to see on the camera, but these leaves look quite green, and that is due to that different charging. These leaves already look a little bit darker and maybe slightly more brown. Wow, okay. I have to say, I am recording this in the morning before having anything to eat, and it's certainly helping me notice the strength of both of these teas quicker than I did in the first session. Yeah, so I can just tell you right now, because we're not gonna finish these sessions, so we're not gonna get to that point, but both of these teas have quite a lot of strength. So if you want to feel something when you're drinking tea, I think both of these are a perfect option. They do differ a bit in their strength and how, they make you feel, but that's also what makes them so fun to compare. Still really nice fragrance here. This one, I'd say, is more sort of energizing, invigorating. It's strong in a pretty, let's say, obvious or straightforward way, but only after a while, this one really creeps up on you. This one, I'd say, is more maybe relaxed, grounding. A bit of a, I don't want to say slower tea, because this one is a slow burn. It takes a while, but it keeps ramping up. This one is perhaps a bit more subtle in how it makes you feel. Also, goes without saying, you can maybe already see it from the way this tea pours, but both of these, both the Laobanzhang and the Cha Ping, are quite thick and viscous teas. They have a good feeling of weight in the mouth. Maybe perhaps a bit like they feel almost oily because they coat the mouth, and the aftertaste sticks for a really long time on both of them. They are really worth savoring. Oh, I wanted to start with this one for the second steep, and I forgot. Um, so I'm just gonna wait a moment. But yeah, just from this first sip, already on the second steep, I am getting noticeably more bitterness. The cool thing about this one is, though, the bitterness doesn't become overwhelming at any point. It's very clearly defined, it's quite structured, and it does not overpower everything else that's going on with this tea. It just works, and it works beautifully. Now I took another sip of that one. I am so sorry. We do not want to forget about the chopping because it is definitely also worth paying lots of attention to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one, super pleasant, round, comfortable, grounding, relaxing, but still leaving you in a state where you're maybe a bit more alert, a bit more open to not experiencing but noticing things, a bit more mindful. What I loved so much about this tea when I tried it for the first time is that it has this layer of fruitiness, like a sweetness that almost kind of interlocks with a few other aspects of the tea, like with tartness, with other types of acidity, with bitterness, with a certain feeling of crispness that also comes with a light astringency that builds up over the course of a session. And it creates this impression where it's sort of going through and giving impressions of different types of fruits, which I find really cool. The only time where I've experienced that before was when we had some star fruit at home, and depending on how ripe it was when we ate it, it tasted like completely different other types of fruit. This one I'd say also has opened up a bit more right now. I'm just getting an even fuller and richer taste. It's hitting a lot of different notes. And yeah, the strength of these teas is setting in. The bitterness on this one is coming out more and more. And I am quite glad that I'm doing this comparison on a day where I don't have much else to do, luckily. Because now, even after this video is done, I'm just gonna keep drinking these teas, comparing, and gaining a few more impressions that will help me fill out the last remaining gaps in my description. Alright, I am gonna pour in a third steep. I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish it on camera, but we will at least get started on it. Now, I guess the last question to look at for this video is, how do these two teas relate to each other in terms of the experiences they create? Can I maybe connect them in some way? Alright, third steep going in. This one doesn't need to be as long. These leaves are definitely woken up by now. So maybe we can finish off with a short steep. That might bring out a couple of different notes from the way I usually prepare teas like this. As you might know, I tend to go for longer steep times. All right. So, what connects these teas? What brings these two teas together outside of both being Sheng Pu'er? While I take a moment to think about that, as always, if you enjoy what we're doing here with nannuoshan, with the YouTube channel, leave a like, post a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. All of these things do matter. And especially the comments, we want to hear from you. Are you going to try this tea? Does it sound interesting? Have you had anything like it before? There are so many things we could be talking about. And we always love hearing from you all. So take a moment and tell us a bit about yourself. I guess the first thing connecting these teas would of course be their exceptional quality. I think once you become a bit more experienced with Pu'er, there are certain things you notice about these teas that might be difficult to put into words. It's kind of a I know it when I see it type situation, but there are various things that come together that you feel when you drink them that just give you the impression that, yeah, this really is a good tea. And both of these excel in that regard. It's not just things like complexity of flavor or fragrance or how the tea changes across steeps. It's not just how it makes you feel or how thick and viscous it is when you drink it. I think it also has to do with things that aren't just there as a singular sensory expression, not something you experience just with your tongue or just with your nose or just with your eyes, but impressions that come together and, yeah, weave a certain narrative, create a story, a certain fabric perhaps that puts all of these singular sensory expressions you have in a certain order, a certain structure. I think a really good tea doesn't just have all of these disjointed elements, but it brings them together in a sort of harmony. In that particular way, it is kind of like perhaps a band or an orchestra or whichever musical example you want to use where a group comes together to play. A good tea isn't just composed of individually skilled musicians that all know how to play their instrument to perfection. It's about how they come together and what is produced when they come together like that. There is, in the world of tea, not limited to Sheng Pu'er, but often also found in Yancha, the element that's talked about as a sign of quality tea that is called yun, which is often translated as rhyme. I think I've mentioned this in one of my Pu'er lexicon videos, but I think this word doesn't need to be translated so literally, but what's more important about it is what it says. Like yun as rhyme, as meter in music, as something desirable in the abstract. Something that is related also to time in some way. Like time needs to have passed at some point for there to be yun. That doesn't mean that a tea needs to be aged. It can also mean that the person making the tea has spent the time to refine their technique. Where was I going with this? Give me just a second. These teas really are hitting me hard by now. But yeah, this element of yun that gives structure, that provides balance, that provides harmony. I think that is one of these abstract qualities that is very much present in both of these teas. They are united in yun. They express it differently, but it exists in both. Harmony, structure, balance. These are desirable things, very desirable things in tea that can be hard to get right if you're a producer. That can also be hard to sense if you're somebody who's buying tea and you're trying 50 different teas in a day, going from tea shop to tea shop to tea shop. You can't sit down and spend time with each tea to figure out, hey, is this right? Is this harmonious? Is this balanced? These are often things that we only start to understand once we've spent a bit more time with the tea. And I am glad that I had the opportunity to spend time with both of these teas, as they are, if you want to put it that way, structurally sound. These are very good teas. They're probably not going to be cheap. I don't know the exact prices off the top of my head right now, but we only have a very limited quantity. I think getting a few grams of each of these teas is absolutely a worthwhile endeavor. They are high end, they come from different parts, they are good representatives of these parts of Yunnan. And whether you compare them, whether you drink them individually, they are going to give you a wonderful experience. I am pretty sure of that. So, thank you for joining me for this video today. If you end up trying any of these teas, then always let us know. There's the comment section here, there's the nannuoshan Discord, there's Instagram, Facebook, and I honestly don't even know what else at this point, but we'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day, and goodbye.